All right. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and have a chat with you all and meet you, and it's really great for me. It's been a while. I gave a talk at TCU in October of 2023, and that was kind of fun, and this is the first one I've done since then, so yeah, this is really kind of cool for me. And the other thing I would like to thank you for, you staff members, I would like to thank you for answering the call to do what you do. I know that this is not just a job. This is a very important life-saving thing that you do for people. I know from personal experience the magnificent job you do and how much you help people. And I thank God for people like you. So now to talk a little bit, I know you were promised a riveting talk today, so I will do my best to live up to that expectation. But anyway, just to give you kind of a rough idea, this whole thing really, for me, has been about an exercise in gratitude, and I'll get into details about that. But first of all, in terms of basic chronology, it was on Christmas Eve, 2018. My wife and I were visiting her niece up in the Wichita, Kansas area, and we were having dinner, and I'd been feeling very peculiar all day. And Irene's sister was there visiting her daughter, and her sister was a nurse. And her sister watched me during the evening, and she said, "Scott is having a stroke. You need to get him to a hospital right now." And we got up to leave. I put my coat on. I stepped out the front door and fell off the front porch. My right leg just gave away right under me. I went down onto the ground, and I couldn't move. They had to call an ambulance, have me taken to a hospital. To make a long story short, I spent 8 days in what they call acute care, and then I was transferred to a rehab hospital, kind of like this, where I spent the next 2.5 weeks just getting well enough to travel home to Texas. So that was a bit of a shock, as you can imagine. Since then, it's really been a journey for a whole bunch of different things as things I've learned, which I would like to share, and some of the experiences I've had. So, for one thing, I realized right out of the gate that I was going to have any number of challenges. And the challenges that I've had really fall into 4 categories. You see, I have them listed on the outline here as social, physical, psychological, and attitude. So first, the biggest challenges have been not physical. You might think they've actually been social. One of the first things I learned is that I didn't have nearly as many friends as I thought I had. I think a lot of people who go through a traumatic event discover that a lot of people they thought were their friends all of a sudden just kind of disappeared. And I know in my case, there I was in Wichita, Kansas, 300 miles from home. And so here I am texting and emailing. I couldn't speak very well at first. So I texted and emailed like everybody I'd ever met. Say, hey, I'm in a hospital in Kansas. I've had a stroke and blah, 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 hoping that I would hear back. And I would say about 60% of the people I contacted, I never heard from again. I got no replies, nothing. And including many people I had known for many years. And that to me was the biggest single non-physical shock of the whole experience. And of some of the people who actually did reply, I think some of them viewed me as, oh, Scott's now a stationary target, so I can say whatever I want, and he'll put up with it. And I found out that not everybody who was communicating with me was really on my side. Maybe some of you patients have experienced that, and maybe you will. But it took some real determination on my part, with the help of my wife Irene, who is the most wonderful human being on the face of the planet. She really encouraged me. She said, "You know what, Scott? It's going to be hard, but you need to get rid of these people. They're harming you. They are not helping you." So that was really an important thing, and frankly, it took me a couple of years to get to the point where I realized that some of these people were really not on my side. Now, some of the people in that group included doctors. I had a doctor who was really not on my side. Just to give you one example, I've had challenges with my weight my whole life, and at one point I was really reforming what I eat. I've always had a weakness for desserts, always. And I know at one point I had an update with my doctor, and I said, I said I'm kind of proud of myself. For the first time in my life, I had a package of cookies at home, and I looked at it and I threw it away. A whole package of cookies. And she said, "What, was it expired?" And I thought, that's not quite the response I was expecting. I mean, for me, this was a major life change. This is like an alcoholic throwing away, a gallon of his favorite liquor, and I was just really shocked. And so there have been some real issues. Now, another issue that I've had to deal with has been isolation. Another very common thing. I mean, obviously, my mobility was greatly restricted, and I'm spending a lot of time alone, and it's been a challenge. It's really been a challenge to be alone so much. Irene does what you can for me, but you need a bigger social network than that. So, and I have a lot of online friends. I've been involved in online communities since the 1970s. So I'm real familiar with that notion, but there's no substitute for real human contact like this. I mean, I just don't get it in terms of groups of people very often. The monthly stroke support group, which I've been coming to for about a year, I think, maybe a little longer, right, Christy? Is a fabulous resource, and if they were to give out a Nobel Prize for wonderful things, Christy would definitely win for the stroke support group. I mean, it's just amazing. And for those of you who are patients who've had strokes, I really encourage you to attend. Not just for something to do, but you'll really get an idea of what other people's experiences are like, and find some encouragement. And you may have heard this, that no two strokes are alike, and no two stroke patients are alike. So everybody's experience is a little different, but we can all use some encouragement. So, and I have seen certain members of the group make significant improvements over the time that I've been participating. In a way, I kind of envy them because my physical limitations are pretty severe. So, and another thing is as hard as it can be when you are isolated a lot, because with reduced mobility, you just things that you took for granted are just not there anymore. Making new connections becomes really hard. So, if anybody has some good tips, let me know, because I mean, I'm a natural introvert anyway, so it's really difficult for me to get out. And sometimes when I go out, people look at me like I have 5 heads or something, and it gets a little intimidating for me to experience that. So, but so there, like I say, there's certain social challenges involved when it's just, maybe you're not really part of society anymore. Are you? Are you not? Do you have friends? Do you not? So that's hard. And of course, the physical changes have been incredibly dramatic. And I have here that I experienced pain, and then there's pain. And I have to tell you, since I had the stroke, I have not had one pain-free moment. I am in constant pain. I'm sitting here right now, and my right arm hurts, and my right leg hurts, and my head hurts, and I don't even take inventory anymore. I just hurt so much. And it's incredibly wearing. It really is. And it's funny, for years, Irene will see me and she says, where'd you get that bruise on your leg? Or where'd you get that cut on your arm? And I'm like, I don't know. No, it's just there. I bumped into something, or I scratched something, and I don't even feel it, because my pain meter is pegged all the time. So, an additional bruise doesn't even register, that sort of thing. So, and because of the pain, I don't sleep well. I haven't had one good night's sleep now in 6 years. And it's exhausting. I'm doing better. I mean, at first, if Irene and I wanted to go someplace, she'd say, okay, well, you have to get up, and take a shower, and get dressed. And that would take the better part of an hour just to do that. And at the end of it, I was so exhausted, I wasn't going anywhere. So I would have to take a shower, take a nap for an hour, get up, get dressed, and then we could go out. I mean, the exhaustion is staggering and really difficult. So. Obviously, there's been an issue with loss of mobility. And at first, when I was first admitted to the hospital, I was losing more and more of my right side. On the morning of Christmas Eve that day, I felt strange, but I didn't have any problems with limited motion. In fact, I got in the car and I drove around for an hour or so, and I didn't notice anything. It wasn't until the evening. After I was admitted to the hospital, I could still move my right arm and right leg, but as the evening went on, I got to the point where I could not even twitch a finger of my right hand. I could not move my right side at all. And I lay there thinking, am I dying? Is this it? I mean, am I ever going to get this back? And obviously, I've gotten some of it back, and some of it I haven't. But it was really hard. And I have to really thank, I had this physical therapist when I was first admitted to the hospital. She started working with me on, I think, my second day. And she got me upright and got me to take a couple of baby steps, moving here and there, and helped me learn how to brush my teeth, and certain other things that I was simply not able to do anymore. I mean, to me, that was one of the biggest things. All these things you do in life that you take so for granted that you can do. You know, get up, turn a light switch on and off. You know, walk from one room to another, tie your shoes. I couldn't do any of them anymore. And so learning how to do those things has taken years. I'm still working at it. So I still can't tie my shoes. So thank God for elastic shoelaces. That's all I have to say. You know, Irene ties them once and then they stay that way. So with that comes the psychological changes and the psychological challenges that I face. And I say all at once. I lost my career. I lost my hobbies. I lost a lot of friends. I lost my independence. I lost my mobility. And I lost a lot of mental capacity as well. Luckily, my speech was not badly affected. Initially, I was real mushy in terms of speaking. But I did not have any loss of memory, any loss of vocabulary. I know in my initial intake, they had a speech therapist come through and give me a bunch of tests. And one of them was, okay, name all the animals you can that begin with the letter B in 60 seconds, you know. So I start rattling off, you know, beaver, brontosaurus, all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the minute, I said, how did I do? And she said, well, you got 22. And I said, is that good? And she said, well, average is 11. So I'm like, okay. She said, well, you're not going to need any speech therapy for your vocabulary and that. So that was really good. But anyway, with the loss of all that and what I didn't lose, the question becomes, now what do I do? You know, who am I now? Am I the Scott that I was a week ago? Am I still that guy, or am I somebody else? I really didn't know. But a really important thing to do right from the outset for me that I think has made all the difference is to assess my situation, not in terms of what I've lost, but in terms of what I have to be grateful for. And aside from some things that are very obvious, that I'm so grateful that I'm not worse. I'm grateful that I can speak. I'm grateful that I can still somewhat move. I'm grateful that I have a loving wife who takes such excellent care of me. I'm grateful to all the people who have helped me on this journey, not just professional physical therapists, but the friends who stayed with me and encouraged me and helped me. How can you not be grateful for that? No. And from the outset, I have said, and in fact, I think it was my first day or two in the hospital, I said to Irene, you know, I have to look at it this way. I know that around the world, there are literally billions of people who would trade places with me in a heartbeat. They would say, well, let's see, what have you got? You know, you have a home, you own your home, you don't have any debt, you are in a loving relationship, you're physically safe, you don't have to worry about being murdered in your sleep. You know, you're not rich, but you know, you're financially okay. It's like you're so ahead of the power curve in so many ways that people would say, okay, I can get all that, and all I have to give up is use of my right arm and leg. I'll take that deal all day long. You know, so as unpleasant and as uncomfortable and as a continuing challenge, as much as that is true, it is also true that I am so grateful. I'm grateful to God who has helped me so much. I'm grateful to you people for being here. If this talk is beneficial to you, I guarantee you it's beneficial to me as well. So it's just truly amazing. And because of that attitude of gratitude, it's gotten me through some rough times. Because, I don't want to paint this picture that I'm married sunshine and everything's great, and I'm not going to let a little thing like a stroke hold me back. Let me tell you, the bad days are bad. There are days when I hurt so bad, I just hurt, or I'm in a lousy mood, or I'm disappointed, or I'm frustrated, or I'm feeling lonely. Those are bad days. Those are really bad days, and I have them. But I've learned not to let a bad day become a bad week, and then a bad month, and then a bad year, because it's really hard to turn that stuff around. I've learned. And I've been around people who are chronically negative about things. I say if you don't practice gratitude, you can easily slip into the practice of ingratitude, which is something you really don't want to go there. That's really not great. So now, what does the recovery path mean? And it's sort of like recovery takes on a different meaning. It isn't like about 25 years ago I had a knee injury. It's a pretty serious knee injury, but there's a path to recovery. It's sort of like, okay, I can stand. Okay, I can take steps. Okay, I can take more steps. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon, after a while, I can use my leg just like I had before the injury. The stroke is not like that. My body is so different. My experience is so different. My capabilities are so different that I go not so much from recovery as to discovery. It's like, okay, I can't do what I used to, but what can I do? What can I do now? What can I do differently than the way I did it prior to the stroke? And it's been a journey, really a journey of discovery, what I've learned about myself, what I've learned about other people, good and bad. It's been really, really important and really interesting, I say there's no such thing as a typical day, because I know every now and then somebody, well, what's a typical day like for you, Scott? There's no such thing as a typical day. So it's really difficult because, Irene will want to plan something. She'll say, well, do you want to go do X tomorrow? And I'll say, Irene, I can't promise you, if I don't get any sleep tonight, I will not want to go tomorrow. If I only sleep an hour or two, if I sleep really well, yeah, we'll do that and more. So it's really, really difficult. And, some days just getting out of bed is really hard. Some days I feel incredibly sluggish. And frankly, some days I feel really lazy. I've been working at, I've spent 6 years trying to improve movement in my right hand. And believe it or not, this is a big improvement over where I started. That initially my right arm was clamped so tight against my body that it actually caused an indentation in my abdomen. I know that may sound incredibly weird, but that's what it was like initially. So the ability for me to stick my arm out a little bit is a huge improvement. And it only took me about 4 years to get to that point. So you think about 4 years. When I first had the stroke, like a lot of patients, in the first 6 months, my recovery went really, really quickly. I regained a lot in 6 months. I started to drive a car. I was able to walk around without a cane for short distances. And I'm thinking, oh man, I got this thing licked. By the end of the year, I'll be back to where I was. And no, that didn't happen. I sort of plateaued after about 6 months, which is pretty common. And after that, it's really been a struggle to keep improving. But I was told by physical therapists early on, said, you can't stop. Because if you do, the minute you stop, you lose what you regained. And they said it will happen so fast you won't believe it. So you have to keep working at it. And I find that there are certain things that have really improved and that help me a lot. Irene tells me that my mental capacity, my sharpness is better than it was even a year ago. I know initially, I've always been a very avid reader, and after the stroke, I couldn't read. I could look at words and understand what they meant, but I couldn't put sentences together or paragraphs. It was just read one word at a time. And that horrified me. I thought, oh my God, if I can't read again, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then over months, I was able to read. I started reading children's books. And I started reading Archie comic books, because I've read those when I was a kid. And I progressed beyond Archie, so that's... Yeah. And there's certain things that were really hard. I think the first time I took a shower on my own, it took me almost an hour just to take a basic shower, wash my hair myself. And now it's like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. It's still clumsy and awkward and challenging and very physically demanding, but I can do it. Irene doesn't need to watch me to make sure I don't fall. No. But so things do get easier. I can do some basic cooking and things like that. Things get easier, but I'll tell you, nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. I can drive. I had my driver's license renewed, which is kind of a story. I went down. I was sure. I mean, you look at me, and I go down to get my license renewed, and I'm like, I know they're going to road test me. They're going to have to road test me. I mean, how can they not, right? So I practiced, parallel parking, parallel parks, right? And anyway, so I'm all set to go. I go down there, and I get, the woman, and she goes, okay, so you had a stroke, so do you drive one-handed? Yes. She said, how does that go for you? And I said, okay. She said, all right, $37, please, or whatever it was. I'm like, you're not gonna road test me? I didn't say that, but I'm like, So I turned to Irene and I said, let's pay her and get out before she changes her mind. So, I guess it was a real busy day or something. Or luckily I have a good driving record, But I'm like, okay, well let's get out of here, So, but there are times too when there are days when I just don't want to do stuff, and there are days when I can't do stuff. And it'll be funny because Irene will say to me, well, do you want to go for a ride and do stuff like that? And I think, I'm kind of like her pet. I'm like her pet dog. Do you want to go for a ride? Do you want a treat? Who's a good boy? So that's kind of the way I feel sometimes. I'll take whatever treats I can get. So in a way, it's really kind of funny. We have to, we have to keep a good sense of humor about this, because if we only looked at it from the more tragic aspects, we'd be done. So, that's why I'm so grateful to Irene for being so good to me and so patient. She has never complained once. All the millions of little things that she has to do, it's truly astonishing. But one of the things that we really do, like when I'm a good boy and I deserve a treat, is when we measure progress and I make some sort of progress. When I can do something I could not do the day before or the month before. And we celebrate every single one of those. Everything is a victory. When I couldn't do something and now I can do it, it's like, wow, I can do it. I know about 2 or 3 years after the stroke, Irene was at work and I'd made myself a sandwich and I'd gone into my home office and I sat down at the computer and I said, how did I get in the room? Because I had a sandwich and a drink in one hand. How did I open the door and turn on the light? And I had done it with my right hand without thinking about it. And I was amazed. I could do, that was the first time that my right hand acted without me having to concentrate really hard on getting it to move. I'll admit, I sat there and cried. I couldn't believe it. It had actually happened. So, and it's kind of funny. I talk about here, I'd say, if only they knew. That the first time I went out on my own, I went down to this local burger place that we go to, and I was all on my own. Drive up, walk in, very unsteady on my feet. So I stagger through the door, clunking my way in, and people are looking at me like I'm this incredibly pathetic creature. And I thought, if you people only knew, this is my first time out on my own in years. It's like, for me, this is like the biggest event of my year. You're looking at me like I'm this, kind of wreck, which I suppose I am. But, to me, I'm like, no, don't feel sorry for me. This is a celebration. So that was really significant for me. And it led me over time to realize that recovery happens not just in terms of stages, but in terms of dimensions. And what I mean by that is I have this phraseology that I use called the 3 Sus of survive, sustain, and succeed. It's kind of hokey, I know. But, like survival skills. For me, survival skills were like, oh, the number one thing on my priority list in recovery was go to the bathroom by myself. Because, good Lord, did I hate needing help in the bathroom. I'm from a generation when, private things are private. And I just didn't like that. And I have a story about this. I don't know if I should tell it. Should I tell it? Okay. Okay. So it's about the third day, my third day in the hospital, and I'm really helpless. And I had this nurse's aide helping me in the bathroom, and she's holding on to me really tight. Obviously I'm a big guy. She doesn't want me to, but she's holding on to me really, really tight. And at one point in that process, I looked at her and I said, in previous years, when I was this intimate with a young lady, I was doing something a lot more fun than this. And she looked at me like I was some crazy, dirty old man or something. But, to me, it's just the irony of it. I was so helpless. And, here I have this pretty young girl holding on to me. And, oh, well, so, anyway. At the time, I thought it was pretty hilarious. She didn't seem to share my sense of humor about it. But anyway, okay. So anyway, survive, sustain, succeed. One dimension of recovery is survival skills. Like being able to feed myself, dress myself, clean myself. Just the basics. Communicate with other people. Talk to them. Be able to tell them what I need. Be able to respond to their requests. These are your basic human survival skills. And then another dimension of recovery is what I call sustain. And these are the things that you need to do, maybe not minute to minute, but say day to day or week to week. Can I go to a grocery store? Can I write out a check? Can I go to the mailbox and get the mail? Can I drive somewhere in the car? Can I, just some of the more day-to-day things, or arrange to have them done. And then the dimension of success is a little different, because success doesn't mean like, I'm going to get a multi-million-dollar Hollywood contract to tell my story. That'd be great. But to me, a success is anything that I say it's a success. Like going out for lunch on my own the first time, big success. Turning a light on without thinking about it, huge success. Being able to hug Irene with both arms, that was big, let me tell you. So success is whatever, but when I say they're dimensions, it's not like you have to have all of your basic survival skills before you can have sustaining things in your life and before you can have successes. I started having successes pretty early on. Obviously, my being here today is what I would consider a big success. So hopefully it's a pleasant experience for you all. So, how am I doing on the riveting scale?
Great.
Yeah? Oh, great.
Oh,
Good.
Arlene's a harsh critic. She said 10 out of 10.
Oh, thank you. And, kind of finally, because I know we're running out of time, I'm glad there's a clock up there. As I say, like a lot of people who spend too much time alone, if you give them a chance to talk, they won't stop. They'll just keep talking because it's like, hey, I get to move my mouth, But I wanted to say something, and this is when I talk about living in Shunland. And I say that Shunland is a place that has 2 neighborhoods. On the one side of town, you have for a stray shun, and isolation, and apprehension, reject shun. And on the other side of town, you have a different set of shuns. As I say here, determination, adaptation, invention, motivation, that sort of thing. And it's like, so which side of Shunland do I live in? The side I choose. I choose. And I can move any day. I can move to the bad side of Shunland any day I choose. That's why it's important that I make the choice every day to stay on the good side. So, now in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I've been going through for the last 6 years. And I want to thank you all for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question for Irene. So, I've had the pleasure of having them serve for or two now. And Irene, what would your counsel be to, because we have some families here and some caregiver people here, what would your advice to people who are going through this, who aren't the person who had the actual stroke, but the family, as we know, kind of had the stroke with you, just from different aspects. What maybe do you feel like helped you through something?
That's a good question. Really, patience is probably the biggest thing. That's going to be the hardest, because you think he's, they're normal still, but they're still there, and, as you see, he is functioning very well. So patience is going to be, and see what the limitations are of them, what limitations they could do, try to encourage them as much as possible, when you can, and leave them alone when they're like, that they will have days where you just can't push them, you can't. So those are probably that and praying, and be grateful, as Scott said, grateful that they're not worse, because they could be a lot worse. There's always somebody that's a lot worse, and we're very grateful that he wasn't worse. So all of those things combined, probably patience out of all. That's grateful to patience.
And so Scott, do you, okay, so like welcome to Hyatt, the new year. Do you try and set yourself specific goals, or are you really kind of generally just like, okay, today I'm going to be better at this?
That's a good question. I have goals, but I don't have a timeline for them. Because if there's one thing I've learned is that I can't force progress. And when I try, I just get frustrated. So, there are certain things, like, Irene and I always loved to travel. We love to travel. And one issue I have now is the way I feel, I will probably never, ever get on an airplane again. No, I can't even imagine doing it. But there are other things I can set goals like improve my endurance for riding in a car. Because initially we try to go someplace, and about every half hour or 45 minutes I would need to stop and go to the bathroom, or my legs would hurt, and so I need to get out and stretch my legs. Get to the point where we can at least do more trips in the car, so we can get to that. Obviously, when I first had intake at the rehab hospital, they said, "Well, what are your ultimate goals?" And I said, "Complete recovery." It's like I'm going to have a complete recovery, or I am going to die trying. And well, it looks like that it's been 6 years, and I'm still very limited on my right side, so that may not happen, but I'm not quitting on it. I'm not quitting on it. So.
I like when you touched on about a friend. A friend is a big title of the whole. You can have a surgeon, but a surgeon is really not a friend.
That's right.
And I'm frustrated there when I left home. You talk about how your right arm was stuck to your side for so long. That's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it was really.
It is real frustrating.
Yes, and that's why when I finally got to the point where my right arm would.
Me on the 31st. I had a fall. And I've been on my job for 34 years, and I'm fit to be 69 years old, so half my life I spent working. And one person that called me and asked me how I doing from that job. And that's so frustrating right now.
It is.
I thought it was a family.
Yeah.
But then we wasn't.
It is, and it's like, I know, I've had kind of a checkered career. I worked in a lot of places, and I learned when somebody says we're like a family around here, I always think in my mind, okay, which family, Adams or Manson? But yes, I know, I've learned not to depend too much, on former coworkers. In fact, I have a YouTube channel. There's a link to it at the bottom of the page here. And I actually had a former coworker look me up a few months ago. She said, and I had talked to this woman in 25 years at least. And she said, I was wondering what happened to you, so I did a search for you on the internet, and I came across your YouTube channel. So, anyway, it's really great to hear from her, you know, but in terms of, I mean, I've worked with lots of people over the years, you know, it's like, you know, a lot of places at where you work, if you're gone 2 days, it's like you were never there. You know, you think you make such a difference, 2 days later, they never heard of you, you know. So, oh, one thing I forgot, I want to do this real quick. And since we're in a physical therapy place, I want to do a little show and tell. So these are some things that I've been using to aid in my recovery. So one of these is, first of all, a back scratcher, which aside from, you know, the obvious being able to scratch places I can't reach, it's also really great for like flicking a light switch or grabbing something that I dropped, you know, so I don't have to bend too far. So maybe that's being lazy, I don't know. Let's see, I have.
We call it being ingenious.
Well, that's the way I would like to view it. You know, my dad had a saying he learned in the Army that if you want to find the easiest way to do something, you ask the laziest guy. You know, and so I must be pretty lazy because I like to think of things. So I use an old handkerchief. I play a game of catch where I toss it from my left hand to my right. And I started out using a ball. Well, obviously I couldn't catch it, so the ball's rolling all over the place. And I got homicidal in about 5 seconds doing that. So I said, well, let's toss something that can't get away from you, you know, so the handkerchief works pretty well. So, and something I picked up, I think in a dollar store, is this little thing. It's actually, I think it's a foot massager, but I find that if I put it in my hand, my affected hand, that the little nubs on it stimulate the nerves. So I have this reaction in my hand that when I get stressed, it tightens, gets really tight. That's why I keep a piece of pool noodle in my hand. Because initially it was clenching so tight that my fingernails were actually drawing blood, cutting into the palm of my hand. So this gives you some stimulation of my right hand. Another thing I do is I'll run hot and cold water on my hand, just to get some sensation for it. So let's see. I use a hockey puck. When I realized that my right hand, it's like I forgot I had it. And with this, I can put it in my hand, and it gives something with some weight, so that I can practice like lifting it and just having a sensation of something. And so that came in pretty handy. I didn't bring one, but I will use a poker chip. You know, when I was in PT, they're like, oh, see if you can pick up coins. Give me a break, you know. I mean, I can barely do it with my good hand, let alone my right. But I found that I could use a poker chip as a little, you know, being bigger, I can actually at least try, and in some cases I do succeed at picking those up. So, and these are just some things I just, you know, picked up or thought of and all that. So, okay, any other questions? Well, thank you. You've been a great audience. Thanks for coming to the dinner theater today. You know.
So I'm going to butt in for 2 seconds. I'm Krista. I run our stroke support group here. We meet the second Thursday of every month.